day, I don't know, 50, 60, 40 of coronavirus bullshit. So I thought what we could do is talk a little bit about my hot rod. Here's the deal. This is a 1963 Pontiac Tempest, and it has a 509 cubic inch big block Chevrolet in it. You're looking at the air fuel gauge hidden in the glove compartment. That always counts down from 20 when you start the car up. I'm not starting it up right now because I'm waiting for some parts. So here's what's going on. Take a walk around with me. I got this camera on tripod. We'll kind of get out with it. Well, here's the car. 63 Pontiac Tempest convertible in my little one-car garage. But you can kind of get an idea. Nice little car. 3,200 pounds with the big block Chevy in it. Nobody made any kits for anything for this car. Everything's fabricated here. Motor mounts, front disc brakes, headers, transmission mount, rear end, 4-link. Everything's just all put together for this car. So, a couple things going on at the moment. One of them is I'm switching out a push rod and a lifter. These are BAM solid roller lifters. I like these guys. The only thing with these lifters is that you got to cut a little tiny notch between the main oil hole and the oil feed hole that goes up to the push rod. You need a little bit more oil at idle, so that little tiny notch in there just kind of helps make that happen. So recently I put a pair, I don't know if I can do this single-handed or not, maybe. Recently I put a pair of Brodix Race Right oval heads on the car, and one of the cool things about these heads that I have discovered is this big old hole here. On the production heads there's an exhaust heat crossover that takes up that part of the intake manifold where it comes together, and therefore the head doesn't have any room in it. But here we're actually down inside the valley to the point where you can look at the cam, you can look at the lifters, you can actually get in with a magnet and pull some of them out and switch them if you want to, which is exactly what I'm doing here. Because it just worked out that number 5, the exhaust push rod needed changing and the cup in the lifter was screwed up, so I could just pull that lifter out with a magnet. That was pretty cool. Carburetor looks like basically a 750. You'd think 509 cubic inches, not really enough carburetor for a 509, but this is a 750 that was built by Barry Grant when Barry Grant was in business for himself in Dahlonega, Georgia, and this is one of his 4779 stage 3 reaction time carburetors. You can see it's kind of, these engraved it in the throttle body there. And what makes this carburetor kind of nice is that they had opened up the Venturis. They came up with their own boosters that were like knife edge sharp on the top. The throttle blades are a little different. Everything is just changed to make it flow a little bit more air. So this 750 actually flows somewhere between 870 and 900 CFM. So that works out good for this motor. What else is going on here? I'm running a bypass on the fuel system. so that coming in here on the end line, I'm running 6 pounds of pressure, 5.5 pounds of pressure, and then fuel comes around and comes back here, and this is the regulator, and this is where that 5 pounds is set. So anything over 5 pounds comes down and it returns in the return line. So there's always fuel pressure, and there's not too much of it. Sometimes I run a little bit less fuel pressure, and all you have to do is run a little bit bigger needle and seat in the carburetor, and then you can run less pressure with more volume. It's all about the volume. What else is going on here? This line here across the front, that's a vacuum line. It draws vacuum off of the top of the valve cover on this side. This is a little regulator here. I can adjust this to just seep a little bit of air in there so you don't get as much vacuum. But the vacuum is picked up from this pump here. It looks like a power steering pump, but it's a vacuum pump. And that just keeps a constant amount of vacuum inside the engine. That really helps with ring seal. There's not as much blow-by that goes by the pistons. The rings are sealed up tighter. There's also not any oil leaks because there's no chance of things dripping out when everything has got vacuum on the inside. That took a little bit of fabricating. I don't know if you can see it down there, but the vacuum pump has its own pulley that it has to run on. That was something that all needed to be fabricated up, drawn up. I had a friend with a CNC machine, and he cut that pulley out. You can kind of see it down there, and it worked out pretty good. The reason that needed to be cut out was because it's a different ratio. The vacuum pump wants to turn at half the engine RPM, so it needs a small little pulley down on the bottom. What else is going on here? This hose and that hole up there, there's another hose that goes off the right side, and then this air cleaner assembly fits on there. So let me try this out here. See if I can set this down here. Maybe this will work. Kind of got to look at the car. I've got the other hose on. But this is a pretty good system because you're drawing fresh air right in here from the cowl in through here. And when you're going down the road, this is a low pressure area. This draws fresh air coming right in here. That's a great place to pick up air. It actually has a little pressure as you get going a little faster. And if I take filter out of the air cleaner, you can kind of see the way this works. It's got nice, good flow, good shape going into the carburetor. Plenty of air, plenty of room from inside the air cleaner. So that's how that all works. Valve springs. So these heads came with a 250 pound on the seat spring, a 550 pound per inch spring pressure spring on them, which was too much spring. I don't want to run that much spring. Running a solid roller lifter cam on the street, I like to be around 190 pounds, something just a little under 200 pounds on the seat, and right around 490, a little under 500 pounds open. I think that works for longevity in the long run. So I had to change the springs out that came with these heads and put these pack springs on. I think they're 1227 is the number on them. Good spring, 500 pound per inch rate spring, and there you got comp tool steel retainers on them, locators underneath the springs to keep them in place, and hopefully this should be a good setup, good for 6,800 RPMs. So we'll see. Car-wise, 10-inch tires on the back. I run a 10-inch Nito on a 9-inch rim. The rear is an 8 3/4 Chrysler rear, and in the car there's a handle there on the gear shift is attached to a Richmond 5-speed transmission, which is really low in first, second, third, and fourth, and then fifth gear is 1-to-1, so you wind up running a high ratio rear end, and you pick up that first, second, third, and fourth gear in the transmission. So first, second, third, and fourth, this car's like driving a 411 rear, and in fifth gear it actually has a 294 gear in it. So it's pretty good on the highway, and it's more than good in the lower gears. That's about all I got for right now. COVID virus, video number, I don't know how many. Should have that new push rod and new lifter on Thursday or Friday, and maybe by this weekend this car will run. Of course, it's supposed to rain. That's all I got.